Hello, welcome back. My name is Ari, and today we're going to talk about all the books that I DNF'd in 2022. So this is basically not like all these books are horrible, don't bother reading them kind of video. This is more of this is why I'm DNFing them, where it doesn't fit my taste, but I'm going to try to describe these books in a way that might fit your taste. So let's get into it. I DNF'd 11 books this year. I'm going to start with the honorable mention DNFs, and these are two books that I have DNF'd for now, but I do plan to go back and finish reading them. The first one of those books is Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. I started this, I didn't finish it before the end of the month, and like had to put it down in order to like get other books to read for the next month and like make goals for videos and everything like that. There's nothing wrong with this. It's kind of dry, but it's like interesting, and I just haven't like gotten back around to it yet. So nonfiction, it's about the Osage murders, the creation of the FBI. Like I said, it's a little bit boring, but the story, like background of it is kind of interesting. I just ran out of allotted time to read this and haven't had a chance or the motivation to pick it back up since then. The other one that I hopefully temporary DNF'd was Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. I got to a scene in the book where it was talking about a father raping his teenage daughter, and specifically a black man raping his daughter, and then his, like, all of these white men are like turned on by the idea of it, and it was just ick. It was made of ick, and I was like, I don't have the mental capacity to read this right now, so I put it down because this is supposed to be a really, really good book about, you know, racism. But that particular section was the ick. And I haven't, I can't dive back into it yet, so hopefully I can get back to this one, and these don't remain like DNFs. And I want to point out that that specific scene was supposed to be ick. It was supposed to be a bad thing, not like glorifying anything, but it was the ick. Okay, now the ones that I actually 100% DNF'd. The first book I DNF'd this year was Fair by Nisi Shaw. It's like neo-Victorian alternate history sci-fi. It's not what it's marketed as. There's no science fiction in there. Like, the story can be told without the setting. It can be told in any setting. It just happens to be this neo-Victorian setting. It's boring, and there are like 8 trillion different perspectives, so it's like impossible to keep track of characters. You don't care about any of the characters because there's so many of them, and I was like, yeah, this isn't really worth my time, so I just set it aside and moved on. It's something that I own, but I think I might have donated it to the library or a little free library, or sold it or something. I don't know. I don't know where it is, so it's gone from my life magically. The next book up that I DNF'd is another one that has magically disappeared, and that is Harlem Shuffle by Colson Whitehead. Now, I've heard nothing but great things about Colson Whitehead's writing, and he is a very good writer. This, I just had no interest in the main character or the story. Basically, this guy, it's a Harlem guy starting his own business selling furniture, and apparently he gets like roped in with some shady stuff, but I never got to that part because I do not care about a man in 1960s selling furniture. Like, I just straight up didn't care, and could never really, like, I couldn't get interested enough in the story to finish the story. So just not my taste to books. I want a little bit more action and stuff going on, and yeah, just decided this wasn't worth my time and put it down. Next up was an audiobook called His and Hers, and I believe it's by Alice Feeney. This is a thriller. It's a domestic thriller, which automatically is something that I don't like. This is an older book that I had an audiobook of back before I realized that I really hate domestic thrillers. This one was ridiculous. Every single chapter had to end on this like stupid cliffhanger that had no point. Like every chapter was a cliffhanger and an attempt at a plot twist. And that got so old so fast. And then the audio narration for the killer, because you would have like his chapters, her chapters, and then you had a killer's chapters, but you're supposed to think that both of those two people could have been the killer, so they needed to keep the killer's voice gender neutral, right? So it's this like really like it was jarring. It was so bad. It was jarring. It was like a voice disguiser thing is what they used just to make it like robotic sounding, and it like hurt my ears to listen to those chapters where the killer's talking. But yeah, I hated absolutely everything about this book. And yeah, that's it. I hated it. I've got nothing else. Next up was Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. And this was my first foray into a Sally Rooney book. And people say you either really like Sally Rooney or you really hate her writing. And I fall into the category of I really hate her writing. Like, I hate how this book is written and I could not get into it. And I was annoyed and I was just like, this isn't worth my time. And I put it down and I never looked back. Next up is Redemptor by Jordan Fuego. This is the sequel to Raybearer, and I really liked Raybearer. And my issue with this wasn't necessarily the story, it was like how the characters were behaving. So all of the main characters in this story are children, or like literal children at like 11, 12, 13 years old or something like that. And they are ruling the country, and just the way that these literal children were talking about things like sex and having children, reproductive things. It gave me the ick as far as the sexual stuff goes, because I don't want to think about kids having sex. I don't like kids to begin with, but I definitely don't want to think about kids having sex. And then, so that gave me the ick. And then, like, all I can think about the whole time reading this was like, these are children. Like, what are you people doing? These are children. And so I couldn't focus enough on the story. I couldn't, I guess, suspend my disbelief enough to think anything but, ew, these are children. So while I really liked Raybearer, and I thought that was a great book, this one I thought that Jordan Fuego should have aged up these characters considerably in order to make the story work for me personally. Like, great writer, everything like that. The characters' ages, just, I couldn't get past it. Next up, Space Opera by Catherine Valente. I don't know. No one knows how to pronounce this lady's last name. So I have this very interesting thing with Catherine Valente's writing, right? I've read 4 books by her. The very first book I hated. It was like a longer book, hated it, DNF'd it. Second book, it was a novella, 5 stars, my favorite book last year. This was the third book that I read by her. I hated it, I DNF'd it. I hate the storytelling style, like the way the story is being told in third person. I just really hated the storytelling, which is what I hated about the first long book. And then I read a 4th book by her, which was also a novella, that I gave 5 stars and I loved. So lesson here is I only like Catherine Valente if she's writing novellas. I hate her full-length books, at least the ones that I've read so far. It is what it is. I recommend The Past is Red by her and Comfort Me with Apples by her. I do not recommend this book at all. Avoid it. You'll see it at thrift stores all the time. It's not worth it. Next up, I am DNF'd the Banner Saga by James Fadley, I think is how you say this person's name. I have no idea. So the Banner Saga is a game, very good game. The story is awful. It doesn't really know what it wants to be. It's basically using the world of the Banner Saga and then telling a story that has nothing to do at all with the plot of the Banner Saga story. It's the writers, he's not a very good writer. Just kind of avoid this. Play the game. Don't bother reading this book. Like the formatting's kind of awful too. I got this for free at PAX, a convention. But yeah, can't really recommend this one. It is a mystery. If you like mysteries, maybe you'll like it. I don't really like mysteries, but I was bored. We're just gonna pass on this. Next up, I've got Walhalla by Nikki May. There's not really anything wrong with this book other than the fact that it's not for me. So this is basically Sex in the City for Black women in London, is how it's advertised, and sure, I guess, but it's just everyday drama of women who have, you know, relationship problems and I don't care. I just don't care at all. Next up is Darling Girl by Liz Michalski. This is a Peter Pan retelling, and this is going to be the theme for quite a few of the books in here. I don't care about your children. I don't care about stories where it's predominantly a parent stressing about shit about their children. This was boring to me. The plot was just, it didn't move. It was just like saying the same thing over and over again, and I'm like, please get to the point, get to the mystery, like do something other than tell me about your children, because I don't care about your children. I hung on to this one for a little while and just DNF'd it permanently recently because I wanted to see if this was going to be on the Goodreads Choice Awards for fantasy. It was fairly popular because it's a Book of the Month Club book, and I figured, like, my goal was to read all 20 books for Goodreads Choice Fantasy. We didn't do that. There's a lot of them DNF'd on here that's coming up later on this list. This one didn't even make it, but there's 2 of them that were on that list that are DNF'd. But I'm gonna do a Goodreads fantasy video later this month, so more about that later. Anyway, yeah, I don't care about your kids, lady, and the story needs to go somewhere that it wasn't going, so this one's out. Next is The Unlikely Adventures of the Showgirl Sisters. If you've watched a lot of my videos, you will have seen this book before because I did this on a try a chapter tag where I was trying to get rid of a bunch of my books that I wasn't sure I was going to read. So tried a chapter, really enjoyed the first chapter, decided to keep on with this, and then continued reading the book and hated it after the first chapter. The first chapter is from like the mother's perspectives, and then after you get the one chapter from the mother's perspective, you go into the sister's perspectives, and this is basically like the Kardashians, and I just don't care. Like, I don't care about these people. Their drama and problems are completely ridiculous and out of proportion. So I was like, yeah, I don't want to finish this. So we're getting rid of it. It's going bye-bye. Next one is one that I tried. I tried so hard. This one actually ended up being on the Goodreads Choice Awards, and it is Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Miro. Now, like, this is a huge book, and I got like halfway through because I just kept reading it going like, I gotta get through it. It's on the Goodreads Choice. I gotta get through it. This is so boring. There's nothing happening in this book at all, and it's like historical fiction X-Men basically, and this guy is trying to kill these X-Men like children, but nothing happens. Nothing happens. I don't care. So I was bored, and you know what, I just decided, like, hey, it might have ended up on Goodreads Choice Awards, but I'm just not gonna read all 20 this year. I'm gonna go ahead and DNF this and save myself the struggle, because this is definitely not the only book that made it in the top 20 that I'm DNFing. The other one is The Book Eaters by Suni Dean. I don't know how to pronounce this author's first name. I didn't read the description of this story, but I was thinking, like, look at the cover of this. It's like, you know what, this looks like somebody who's like trying to absorb all of this information from books. No, this shit is dark. I was like, just based on what the cover looks like and what the actual like plot of this book is, I was like, what the shit happened here? Like, I was not prepared for how dark this is. And then also with my problem of I hate kids, this is a story about a mother and her son. And I don't care about your child problems. So I DNF this one pretty quick. Yeah, it just, children and stories about children, for the most part, there's a couple of them that I like, but for the most part, it's just not for me. It's just not for me. Thank you for my bookmark back. Anyway, that's all the books that I've DNF'd this year. Let me know down in the comments below if you DNF'd any books, and any books that you DNF that you think I would like, maybe. Let's go with that. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.